Morning. So it has been a minute and a bit since the last time we talked. But as the 2018 hiking season starts to wind down, I figured it was time to make another video. First off, I want to give my utmost congratulations to everyone that completed the massive feat that is their Thru hike. And a special congratulations and thank you to my fellow YouTubers, whether it's Handstand or IB Tat or Ewolf or PT or the Crawford family. You all gave a really unique vision on your journey up to Katahdin. But for everyone that completed their Thru hike, there is another 4 or 5 of us that didn't quite make it. And in my case, came up a little short. And depending on your perspective, everyone that does succeed kind of opens up that wound of defeat just that little bit more, unless you're coming with the right mind frame. So that's actually what I wanted to talk about today, is how you cope with an unsuccessful Appalachian Trail Thru hike attempt. Welcome to my hikeification. So it's over 4,000 of us attempting the Appalachian Trail this year, especially with the weather and that harsh winter start. I would wager probably a better part of 3,000 or more didn't complete it. And whether you hike 2 miles or 2,000 miles, there's a lot of reasons why one has to get off the trail. If you're like me, injury maybe forced you off. Maybe you ran out of money. For many, the pros of the experience couldn't outweigh the day-to-day grind. Others had family obligations. And for a select few, maybe they found what they were looking for well before reaching Katahdin. But with the exception of that last group, for the majority of us, when we've come off, it can lead to disappointment, perhaps embarrassment over your failure. And if not tackled with the right mind frame, can lead to a down spiral. Today, I'm going to give you 12 tips on how to mitigate some of those perceptual nuances and frame the hike in the appropriate manner. Little disclaimer though, post-trail depression is a real thing, and if you do find yourself experiencing that, I do urge you, talk to someone versus listening to a guy on the internet. So my very first recommendation, and probably the most important, is get your ass off the couch. Don't do what I do, where you spent the better part of 6 weeks laying in bed, wallowing over what could have been. Now granted, I had an injury and it negated some of the activity that I could have brought to bear, but there's a lot you can still do. You have to remember that you've just spent the better part of however many days or months you've been on the trail walking 10 to 20 miles every day. And with that, the body naturally produces a lot of endorphins. And those endorphins give you that natural high. And so now all of a sudden you're depleting yourself of those endorphins. It can add into some of those depressive symptoms you may be experiencing. So you want to get active. You want to get out there and do something. And ultimately, not fixate on the trail. Now, subsequently, following my second injury when I hiked the La Cloche Silhouette Trail, I started going to the gym again. And I've been going very regularly ever since. And it's made the world of difference. In fact, that's where I'm heading right now. Maybe we need a little gym montage. two, put your gear away. When I got back, I had left my gear in the corner of my room for longer than I care to admit. Smell aside, you don't necessarily want that constant reminder staring you in the face every time you wake up. So eventually I did unpack, wash everything, and put it organized in my now gear closet. So now I'm ready to use it whenever I need it, but it's not staring in my face on a day-to-day basis. So number 3 recommendation is you need a little AT YouTube hiatus. Again, this is one of those things where I recommend you don't actually follow what I did. I came back and I first thing started to binge on all the fellow YouTubers to try and get caught up on their videos. And while yes, you want to support the community and the acquaintances you made, I do firmly believe, especially when you first get off the trail, you need a little separation. You need a little time to clear your mind. And so being kind of thrown right into day-to-day vlogs of other people who are being much more successful than you may not be what the doctor recommended. So now straight on to number 4, following a very similar theme, take a vacation. A vacation from the hike, a vacation from fixating on your unsuccessful through hike. In my case, granted it was a little bit delayed, but I went to Florida for a month. I know some will say, who the heck goes to Florida in the middle of the summer? Well, that was exactly what I needed. A chance to rest, relax, continue my recuperation, but also just distract myself from fixating on the trail. Something about laying on the beach and drinking pina coladas go a long way to distract you. Number 5, this is for my fellow creators, and that is to do an update video. Now granted, it's probably going to be one of the tougher videos you're going to do, and it isn't so much for you as it is for your audience. Albeit, I do think you can get a little bit of closure from it, but ultimately, in my opinion, I think that you've accumulated this group of viewers and subscribers and people that are following you and invested in your hike. And I can tell you nothing's more frustrating, at least for me, than following somebody and having the videos just stop with no rhyme or reason. I mean, you can assume they've likely got off the trail, but you never really know. And I think the audience and the subscribers give so much to you as a hiker, whether it's encouragement and motivation, but I do believe you owe it to the audience to give that final video. Number 6, spend time with friends and family. So I can tell you as an introvert, the idea of socializing is something I don't love to do even at the best of times, but there are benefits to getting out of the house and spending time with the people that care about you, your friends, your family. And I can tell you I was a little bit resistant. There was a little bit of embarrassment, that sense of failure. But I was the only one that viewed it as such. As soon as I got out, all my friends and family were just awestruck by what I had accomplished. Katahdin didn't mean anything to them. They were impressed by what I had accomplished in the adventure that I was on. And they didn't see it as a failure. So I didn't have to worry about judgment. If anything, they helped prop me back up. And number 7, I challenge you to think about why you hike in the first place. If you're like me and a lot of people, you probably made a list of why you want to attempt your Appalachian through hike. And you use that as incentive and motivation when you're on the trail and having those tougher times. But take a look at that list, and yeah, Katahdin's probably sitting on there. But a lot of the other things really don't depend on reaching Katahdin. For me, it was to commune with nature, to have some time to just really reflect on who I am and what I wanted, to meet some new people, to have a grand adventure, to get a little bit healthier. And whether you hike for 2 days or 200, I would wager you probably accomplished quite a few of those original reasons for hiking the Appalachian Trail. I know I did. Maybe it wasn't as long as I anticipated, but I still accomplished it. Number 8, don't jump right back into in the words of Early Riser, the Matrix. You've had a very different experience, very different environment on the Appalachian Trail, one with solitude and a different pace to life and different priorities. Night and day different than what one's experiences, especially in the urban jungle. And so you want to ease that transition back and not jump straight into the deep end, both to appreciate who you've become in the time you had on the Appalachian Trail, but also to make that transition back into society that much more successful. Any concept of change management talks about something similar, about taking things in stages and gradually getting a win after win. And I would say the transition back to normal life should be something very similar. The throngs of people and the busyness and the intensity can add a lot of stress onto you. And that stress on top of perhaps those feelings of disappointment and anxiety that you already have could be a recipe for disaster. So take your time, transition gradually. And number 9, get out and hike. If you're like me, one of the things that inspired the original desire to attempt the AT Thru hike was I just enjoyed hiking. And maybe to a lesser degree camping. Whether it's the exercise, or the solitude, or the nature, there's no reason to deprive yourself of that. And yeah, it's not the AT, but any hike's a good hike in my books. I've tried to get out at least once or twice a week, whether it's a short hour here, hour there, or a 10-mile day hike. So yeah, hike on. Number 10, find a new goal. When you think back to your time on the trail, it was all about goals. There was the goals of Katahdin, or maybe the goal of the shelter for that day, or so many miles, or the next water source, or the next town. Everything you did had a goal wrapper around it. And now all of a sudden you're back into normal life and you can be in a bit of this limbo. And so I would encourage you to come up with new goals. They don't have to be these grand goals of the next hike or the next monumental adventure. They can be smaller goals, stage goals, maybe a few stretch goals. Having goals, though, gives you something to work towards, to strive towards, to look forward to. And I would argue will make transition back into normalcy that much easier. Number 11, it's time to trim up the beard. Well, we relish the concept of hiker trash while on the trail, which includes maybe some questionable hygiene. As you return back to normal society, you do need to clean up a little bit. Which means looking a little bit more presentable. The last point is take some time to figure out who you are. You're not going to be the person you were in the trail. You're in a very different environment. But I would argue that in all likelihood, the trail changed you. And so you're likely not the person you were before you attempted this. Take some time, do that self-reflection, and really figure out who you are today and who you want to become. For me, one of the biggest components that I think I changed was how I viewed things. I wouldn't say I'm a minimalist now, more of a essentialist. I look around me, whether it's possessions or mental baggage, and I think it in terms of what is essential to me, what is important, what do I value, and I'm making roads to eliminate those things that don't fall into that box. This is an evolving persona, and I'm sure I'll be different 3 months from now and a year from now as well. but I'm taking the time to bask in this new reinvention, taking the time to really think through what this means in my habits, in my persona. Overall, I think it gives merit to the experience you've had if you take the time to see how it has transformed you. And whether it was 2 days or 200 days, I guarantee you are transformed in some way.